is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Rob Barretts is my engineer. You just never know when the inspiration to write that first book will literally come out of nowhere. This was the case with Camara KJ Tanaik. The idea for her book came to her when she least expected it. It's called When It Rains. Camara.
We were looking for other income, thinking other things, and I was just, one day I sat down and I thought, well, someday I'd like to have a dream house. And so I started drawing out this house. Well, as I was drawing out this house, just kind of playing around with sketching and stuff, story started to develop. And so the story came through of Steph and her adventure and just going through trying to put together something. And I thought, when it rains, after the rain, the air is fresh, it's clean, and it's a new beginning. It brings life, and it brings peace. And so I thought, well, now that sounds like a good name for the book, and that sounds like a good way for it, because in the book, Steph goes through some turmoil, but as you go through, she has a new beginning. She moves to the farm, and she leaves her old past, and she seeks a fresh start.
So you have a relative dies, and you inherit the farm.
Right.
So you move from Boston, a metropolitan area, to the Midwest?
To the Midwest. And she's expecting a small little farm, and she inherits something that's beyond her expectations.
So it's a house full of stuff, it sounds like.
It actually is a mansion, and it is full of things. And so she starts cleaning it out, and she starts settling down, and she finds out that she not only inherited land and a house, but she's also got livestock, because it was a working farm.
But then other members of the family find out, and they're like, no, it's ours, we're going to sell it, and we're going to split the money, and she's devastated.
Correct.
Did these people come out of nowhere?
Well, the people are relatives from the past that she doesn't know exist. Her great aunt married a man who had children, and it's his children who expect to have part of the farm.
Oh, okay.
So they're not blood relatives, but they think that that's their inheritance as well because of her.
Did you have any experience like this in real life?
No, but I have seen some of the things with the Underground Railroad. I know the town that I grew up in had the hidey holes, and so I had to tie that in because Ohio is rich in culture, and one of the rich pieces of its past is it was a path on the Underground Railroad.
Right, which you weave into your book.
I did, and I've got 2 more books coming to continue the story of Steph and her romance and what's happening on the farm.
She's battling relatives, but she falls in love.
She does. She doesn't want to, but she does.
How are you finding time now suddenly to do this?
Actually, it's been a project for a number of years. I started writing it a long time ago, and so the hardest part was trying to get it out there to the public, to get it finished and published. Before I found Page Publishing, I had been sending it out to editors, and they were all so nice, and agents. They were really nice about it and told me it was a great book. It just wasn't what they were looking for to sell.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people end up at Page. It's tragic when you think about all of the books that are out there, and they won't even consider helping you.
I did have a good experience with Page. I liked the people that I worked with. I liked that they would get back with me if I asked a question the next day. They were really willing to work with me if I had changes I wanted to make or I wanted to edit anything out or change it. They were really, really nice about that. I have a Facebook page for it. I am doing book signings at Barnes & Noble. So Barnes & Noble have been wonderful about helping me set up book signings and getting the word out. You have to let people know that you're going to be there. You can't expect just the bookstore to do it.
Right.
And so I put the word out, and I've got some advertising coming out for in Ohio, hoping that will push it as well.
What do you mean advertising? Are you taking out ads?
Boosting ads on Facebook and then getting the word out to the people I know. Word of mouth is wonderful. Talking to the newspaper and talking to the local radio stations, trying to get the word out to them, as well as just community events, things like that, letting them know. With the Underground Railroad, letting the Historical Society know, and letting different genealogy groups know. Because, obviously it's all fictional, but the idea is there, and that it's a possibility, who knows?
Right.
I just tell them I'm hungry and I'm going to make sales. If you can let me in your store, I'll make the sales.
Way to go, Kamara. Who could say no to that? Great advice. Thank you. Catherine Haneke has written a lot of articles in her personal life as a lawyer, but now she's stretching her creative wings, and she's published her first book of fiction. It's entitled Death by Perfection. Catherine, lack of time was no excuse for you, was it?
You know what? I needed an escape. So, certainly with what we deal with during the day, it can be pretty mind intensive. And so I just created a ritual. I would come home every day. I would make my dinner. I'd watch usually, like Wheel of Fortune or Celebrity Name Game or something that I had taped on my DVR, and relax for about a half hour. And then I live in a high rise, so I would put a DVD of a fireplace on since I don't have a real one. And I'd light a candle, put music on, and I would lose myself. And like I said, I could just escape from the real world for hours. And it was completely therapeutic, and I absolutely love it.
Did you have any idea that you had this kind of ability?
In my head, I, for a long time, thought, well, it'd be really awesome to write a book, but I didn't know if I could do it. So I took a chance and actually took a vacation for once and went away for a week to see if I even liked it. And I absolutely loved it. But then I didn't know if I could, did I have enough in my head to actually write a book? And then when I just started getting into it, I was shocked at what came out. It kind of just flowed. And so the whole time, no, I didn't think I could do it. No, I didn't think I had it in my head. But then once it came out and once I actually read it, I'm like, wow, yeah, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So, it took me a while to build the confidence up in my book. But certainly, I realized, yeah, I actually could do this.
How does this story go?
So the actual inspiration behind it is that we put so much pressure on people to be perfect. Through social media and just in the news and work, we always expect people to live up to a certain image or a certain way. And so what would happen if somebody who is so-called perfect cracked? So hence Death by Perfection. And in this book, it's written in two perspectives, which is what to me makes it unique. So the first part is it's actually written in first person, and you get into the killings with the shooter, but you don't know who the shooter actually is. You understand why the shooter's doing everything, but again, don't know who it is. And then it'll switch into third person, and you go on an investigation with a detective. And it's unique because the reader knows what is the motive behind everything. So as the detective is investigating, you're like, wait, no, this is wrong, or no, that you're on the right track, keep going. So you're kind of cheering on the detective. But then, of course, the shooter needs to come back and taunt the reader. So that's kind of the cadence of how the overall book works.
Does this book go on?
So there is a second book that I'm in the process of writing now. There is a character that's introduced in this book. That storyline doesn't end, and that storyline continues over to the second one. So Detective McGuire will appear again.
What do you want to accomplish here?
If I could write for the rest of my life, that would make me supremely happy.
Huh.
So yeah, even ideally it would be my full-time job, but I'm not there yet. And I stress yet, but I really do want to keep putting out this storyline and this particular world. Each of the books actually coming, I have quite a few of them spec'd out. They're based on some piece of the Constitution. So this book is based on the Second Amendment, very timely given everything that's going on. And then the second book is a little bit more political. And actually, it's based on the Commerce Clause from the Constitution. And so each of some of the other books are different, amendments from the Bill of Rights or things like that. So you learn a little bit without being hit over the head with constitutionality.
People have to read the book. How are you getting people to read the book?
I had first started with my family and friends. Certainly they're going to support me. So I did have a book launch with family and friends just to get them to start reading, get some reviews out there, and see if people are enjoying it. Within the book, every chapter for the killer actually ends in a hashtag. So I actually have hashtags out there that have additional clues towards the killer. So as people start reading it, they can start tweeting to those particular hashtags and finding additional clues. I actually also have built a website in which it has some additional clues and experiences. For instance, the killer comes home and watches a newscast, and I actually had somebody record that newscast for me to kind of help people get into the book. But then on top of that, I'm just trying to grow a following. I'm doing some book signings. I'm meeting with book clubs. I'm doing meet the author nights. And I'm just, trying to get my name out there so people can go and experience death by perfection.
All right. Good ideas there. Thank you. Rochelle Lane wrote Anna's Special Gift, and it really is a precious children's story about a lesson we all need to learn. Rochelle.
Well, it's about a little girl who's invited to a birthday party, and it's her very first birthday party that she's ever been invited to. And her mom says she cannot go to the party because they can't afford to buy a birthday present. So she convinces her mom to let her give her favorite toy away as a gift. And then she gets to the birthday party, and she gets kind of made fun of for the present that she gave. So it teaches the lesson of accepting the generosity of others. Whenever her friend receives the gift, she gives it a hug and decides that it's the best present that she was given because it was a gift that was given with love.
Did this come from a real experience?
Actually, yes, it did. Whenever I was in middle school, my friends and I, we did a little secret Santa type of thing. And we drew, names out of a hat, and we decided to spend $10. And whenever I got the gift from my friend, it was used, and I went home kind of upset about it, and I told my mom, it's not really fair that I spent the $10 and she didn't. And my mom explained to me that whenever she was a kid, she was the giver of used presents because their family couldn't afford to buy anything. She gave a half-used bottle of perfume, and when she gave her perfume to her friend, she was so embarrassed she couldn't even put her name on it, and the kids made fun of her. And hearing that story from my mom, and hearing it that somebody that I love and cared about was treated that way, inspired me to write Anna's Special Gift, because I really started to think about it a whole different way. And I just want other people to always choose kindness too, and it just really helps whenever you hear about it and a whole different point of view from somebody you care about.
Do you have children?
I do. I have 2 children. I have a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old daughter. And I'm also a teacher, so...
So you see it all the time, how cruel kids can be to one another.
Yes.
Are you able to, because you're a teacher and you have access to children, are you able to get this book to kids?
I actually had the opportunity just last week to go into a classroom and share my book with some 3rd graders. And that was an amazing experience, and the questions that they asked were great. And whenever I read it, I saw some emotions evoked in some of the students, some misty eyes, because I think that they were able to really connect with the fact that not everybody is financially privileged, and some people do really struggle. And so they were able to make that connection as well and empathize with the character, and they were telling me, well, what she should have done was... So it was just really fun to hear their thoughts on it. And what is always one of the neatest things is whenever I tell them about how I was the kid who got the used present, they have this look on their face like, oh my gosh, who would give a used present? But then whenever I explain about my mom, their facial expression changes and they start to soften their hearts, and then they hear the story, and by the end I think that they're thinking about it a whole different way too.
All right, you going to keep writing?
I actually have 2 more books that are in line to be published. I have Curly the Cow and my ABC Bites book.
Great. So you're going to keep writing and keep teaching and keep inspiring.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to keep inspiring here, too, on the Page Publishing Book Club. We got a couple more authors coming right up. Don't you go anywhere.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Donna Lakshmi Selvaraj and her daughter Indira wrote How to Work in Hell Successfully and Not Get Burned by the Flames. So let's get right to it. Exactly what hell are we talking about?
We just talk about, oftentimes people say, I work in hell, or they put these people through hell.
Right.
And so that's where part of the title came from, when people are in a hostile work environment. It's really simple for me because I actually have 3 degrees in human resources, a bachelor's, a master's, and a doctorate, where I simply study how people work together efficiently and effectively. And we have both observed since the 2008 Great Recession, we've seen the managers' and supervisors' behavior change because right now jobs are still hard to find and or hard to keep.
And what I also didn't realize when we would discuss these issues together was that certain things were really happening that I didn't know about, like the woman who was at the photocopier machine performing oral sex on her supervisor at work to get favor, or the sex parties they were throwing, the supervisors and managers and people would participate in order to get ahead at work. I didn't know that those things actually went on. I just thought it was like, more of those TV things that you see, not real life scenarios. So just a way to help people in a way.
My favorite since 2008 has been, the employee says, I don't feel appreciated. I'm not getting a raise. You want me to work harder for less. And the manager says, You should just be lucky you have a job.
Yes. Employees complain, but, because of this employment market that they say now is getting better, but since 2008 it hasn't been getting better. And I feel like, the managers and the supervisors know that the employees have limited opportunities to obtain a new job. So therefore, they act out in more egregious ways than I have observed in the past.
What's an employee supposed to do about that, though, when there is nowhere
else
else to go?
Well, what's interesting? What we did is we provided a forum to share different types of things that are going on in the workplace, but then we also provide one chapter on this. We talk on how to cope better in the workplace, how to hope better, how to forgive and move forward. And then what we've done also is we put a journal in there. It's just 7 pages of a place for employees to journal what's going on and then how to apply what we're calling our coping, hoping, forgiving, and moving forward skills. But we also say our way isn't the only way. We're just offering this tool for those who may find it helpful and, gravitate towards using it. And it keeps the humor in this situation. You don't get too heavy in it because the bottom line is everybody that's working usually have bills to pay and they have to keep their job. And so unless you have a new job, you have to do the best that you can within your job.
That's not what I wanted to hear, but thanks anyway.
Okay, I'm going to make an allegory there, is that after you've done all of these things, going to HR, hoping, coping, all these things, look, you may need to get a lawyer, because at some point in time, this hostile behavior is essentially against the law, and it usually is not only against the law, it goes against the respective company's policies and procedures. So, get a lawyer, go to your union, whatever resources are available to you. But the thing about a lawyer is oftentimes people don't have the money to get, help. And even though I do say in the book, we both, researches, some lawyers will take, money up front, and others will say, based upon the case that you present to them, that they'll take their money after they have, resolved the case. So that is an option. But sometimes it's not the easiest and most viable option.
And that's the last resort after you've exhausted all of the other steps you could take to try to get it to be better.
And we're hoping, again, in our hearts that people are inspired by this, because this is really, we've thought about this a lot, what we hope to achieve, that we would help one person in this situation, but as a consequence, that one person would help another.
Now that's a plan, Donna and Indira. Thank you very much. Freeman Iliaimi is a man of God, and he has dedicated his life to helping people find the path they're meant to take. The name of his book is entitled Power of Purpose. Freeman, what made you decide this was your purpose?
I've seen many people, both young and old folks, both those who are on the street and those in good offices, wasting away, in spite of their great potentials, great abilities, great talents and giftings that they possess. But because of lack of discovery of who they are, of their purpose for living, they are wasting away. Some on the street and some even in good offices, having good salary, but yet they do not have a sense of fulfillment, a sense of satisfaction, because they lack the purpose for their living.
What is your purpose for living?
My purpose for living is to help people discover why they are here on earth, to coach people, to train people, to speak to people, to counsel people, and help as many as I can to discover their purpose for living as a speaker, as a counselor. So this is one of my reasons for living, to help people discover who they are.
What do you do for a living?
I pastor a church.
Right.
I speak in conferences. I author books, and also I'm an entrepreneur.
An entertainer?
Yeah, I do. Back in Africa, I have a business called Redirect Business Trading and Consult. So we do consultation and all that. And also we have an outreach called Purpose Discovery International Outreach, whereby we reach out to the homeless, the orphans, the high school students. We go to high school to speak to them, give them free materials. And also we go to the orphanage homes, reaching out to the children, praying for them and teaching them stuff and giving them free materials back in South Africa. Just 3 years in U.S., United States, and we're going to start all that as well here very soon.
So you were doing all of this outreach and helping all these people in South Africa?
Yes, ma'am. I have pictures and many other stuff as proof of what we've done so far.
And so now you're coming here to do the same thing?
By God's grace.
Is this your first book on this subject?
Officially, this is my first book being published here in the United States officially. But back in Africa, I've published a couple of books. But here in the United States, this is my first.
Do you take your book with you when you go out to speak to children, when you go out to help people? Do you take this with you?
Yeah, I take my books. Majorly, I give children in high school, even guys I meet on the street, and in other places I go to speak at conferences. I give them, most of the time I give free books to high school students. I don't collect a dime from students. I give them free books, most of my inspirational and motivational books. But in conferences, I do give and I do sell at conferences when I go to speak.
So you expect to keep writing and keep selling your book at conferences?
Yes, ma'am.
Are these conferences with other religious people that do similar things, do a social outreach and things like that?
Yeah, I do conferences with churches and sometimes with private organizations.
Well, you're doing the good work, Freeman. Thank you. Kaidi Avloy is just 24 years old. She's from Estonia, and she was working here in the U.S. as an au pair when she decided to write A Chance in Love. So you just decided one day, all right, I'm going to write a book.
Yeah, because I was reading a lot of books before I decided to do writing, and I just had this ideas in my head, and I was like, I can put it in paper, and so I did. It's about a girl who's meeting this guy, and they have this instant connection, and they fell in love, but the guy has secrets. So he doesn't want this girl to find out about the secret, and he's trying everything for her to not find out. But as you know, secrets come out all the time. So the girl finds out, and they break up. But guy won't give up, and he does everything to get her back. It's a typical love story.
Is it based on a true story?
No, I mean there are some things that they are from my life, and the rest of it is like fantasy. So,
what's the message of your book?
I mean, anything is like possible in life. You can find the right person like right away, and you can like click, and you can like live happily ever after that.
You believe that's possible?
It is possible.
But
I've seen it.
But it hasn't happened to you yet.
Well, not yet. Someday. I won't give up.
Are you going to keep writing?
I am actually writing my second book right now. It's a sequel to this book. It's going to be about the best friend from the first book. So it's like slightly connected to the first one.
What's the best friend like?
Well, she's the girl's best friend. They met in school, and she has like very troubled past. And when you read the first book, you can see that she's like, at first she's like all this bubbly person, but actually she's like hiding behind a mask. So it's gonna like unravel in the second book what happened to her and stuff. Yeah.
Are you talking about your book? Are you blogging about it? Are you doing book signings?
Well, I do. I put some stuff on Facebook, and I'm like asking my friends to like share it and stuff. I have to like start doing it more because I want like people to know about it. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, I meet like new people all the time, and I'm like, they ask me what I'm doing, and I'm like saying that I published a book, and I'm like really proud of it, and they're like, oh, what's the book about? And so yeah.
Are you taking the book to Estonia with you? Will they be able to read it there?
Yes, they are able to read it there. They're basically able to read it everywhere.
All right, Kaidi, thank you. Well, that's a wrap, Rob, for this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Remember, you can download this show or any of our shows anytime you want at 710wor.iheart.com. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. See you next time.